With the Swordsmith Village trailer release, we also got a ton of new gameplay for Demon Slayer Hinokami Chronicles 2. IGN, Automaton, Dengeki, and many others all posted their playthrough of this specific chapter, and that, along with the gameplay of the Entertainment District released by Aniplex themselves a couple of months ago, we now have a very good idea of what the story mode looks like. I've watched and rewatched the whole thing frame by frame so I could bring you everything you need to know about Demon Slayer 2's story mode while staying as spoiler-free as possible. At its core, story mode hasn't changed too much. Yup, I just spent hours of my life watching videos frame by frame to reach the same conclusion you could have told me after seeing this for 5 seconds. It's not vastly different, but it did receive several upgrades. You can still explore different locations in specific free roaming sections where you can gather Kimetsu points or grab certain collectibles. In the first game, Kimetsu points could be used for unlocking collectibles. All of these collectibles, though, could be unlocked by fulfilling specific requirements during story mode, so it's more like these are points that you can spend if you just want to unlock something without going back to story mode. And the stuff you can unlock is outfits for your characters, or just small stuff like voice lines or backgrounds for your online card. And in this game, it won't be too different, except the collectibles are a bit more organized, and there are a few new types to unlock too. You've got stamps, you got soundtracks, you got these little books that flesh out the lore a little bit, and you can still unlock new outfits for your character or customization options that you can use for your online player card. But by far the biggest upgrade to these exploration bits is the ability to sprint and jump. Like, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but my god, the jogging on Demon Slayer 1 was so annoying. The only part that felt satisfying to play was that small bit that we played as Inosuke in the Drum Mansion, because he actually had a decent running speed. But everyone has that now. You have a sprint button, so exploring should be a lot more satisfying no matter who you are playing as. Especially if you are playing in these bigger areas, there's more room to run, like in the Swordsmith Village or the Entertainment District, where apparently you're going to be able to run through the rooftops. But that's not all you can explore. You still have these smaller spaces where sprinting may actually be disabled, like right here inside the brothels, though it seems like Inosuke doesn't really care. These areas are pretty linear, so if you just want to run through them and continue the story, you can. But if you want to roam around, in addition to collectibles, you may also find side quests. Much like the first game, these seem to contain fully game original plots, expanding the Demon Slayer story and lore by placing certain characters or issues in front of you. You could think of these as filler or as fun little additions that you never thought about. For example, in the first game, I loved finding Kanao and Zenitsu during the selection exam. Tanjiro spent a lot of time in that forest, even though it didn't feel like a lot of time on screen. So I think during that time that he spent off screen, it would be natural to run into the other Slayers at some point, and seeing Zenitsu scared out of his mind was very fitting indeed. I'm hoping for some good side quests in this next game, but in the end, it all depends on how well written they are. Unfortunately, none of these side missions seem to be voiced once again, they are text only. Luckily, that's not the case for the main story cutscenes. This game will feature Season 3, 4, and 5 of Demon Slayer fully voiced in English and Japanese, using very similar cutscene styles to the first game. Some are simpler cutscenes with the models animating their mouth and head slyly as they talk to each other. Others are a bit more elaborate when it comes to animation, to camera work, and facial expressions. Especially main story moments. These cutscenes get all the care and love CC2 is known for. I mean, you've probably seen the animation work CyberConnect 2 does for ultimate attacks. Well, a lot of these cutscenes are of that same level of quality, or even better. Especially the ones with quick time events at the end of major boss fights, which yes, this game is gonna get a lot of boss fights just like the first game. But that is not all that Demon Slayer 2 is doing with its gameplay. Through the different trailers, we have seen a lot of new minigames. Zenitsu, playing the shamisen, is probably the one we've had the most extensive look at. But it's no surprise CC2 is adding a lot of these minigames to Demon Slayer 2, since the last game they put out was actually a Mario Party-style Demon Slayer game called Sweep the Board. And Zenitsu playing the shamisen was actually one of the minigames there. Now, I don't see a lot of these minigames being recycled, but I think we will encounter a lot more of them in the Hashira training arc, for instance. This shot right here of Tanjiro pushing a rock, how much you want to bet that's a minigame? Minigames aren't new to Demon Slayer Hinokami Chronicles. We had a couple of them in the Butterfly Mansion, but they saved those minigames for a very specific portion of the story in the first game. I believe in the second game, we'll get a lot more of them, and we'll get them a lot more spread out through the entire story mode. In addition to minigames, there are a lot of unique mechanics as well. Tanjiro has a unique smelling gimmick to find a specific person during the entertainment district. Zenitsu uses his hearing to find a crying young girl in one of these brothels. And all of these missions seem to have a unique gameplay system to them, which is sure to keep gameplay a lot more varied compared to the first game. And speaking of the first game, fights against multiple bosses are back. In the first game, we had the Swamp Demon boss fight where we had to fight against 3 different characters at the same time. And in this game, we've seen at least one of the fights utilize this, which is the one against the Hatengu emotions. I have actually seen a couple of others as well, but I'll keep them a surprise for now in case you have missed them. Just know that group battles are back, but there's also an evolution of this type of fight, which we're gonna call the Horde battles. These are fights against dozens of enemies, not too different from a Musou game. These enemies are very weak, often dying from a single hit, but this will allow us to use the playable character movesets in some new and interesting ways during story mode. I do wonder how many of these we'll have, but I believe I have seen at least 2 of them. Once again, I'll keep the other one a secret. I wouldn't want to spoil the entire story mode right away. I did notice that this encounter seems to have a lot more blood compared to the first game. Now, the first game didn't censor blood at all. If you cut the demon, they will bleed. One of the versions of Tanjiro has permanent bloody eyes, for crying out loud, but they do seem to have a lot more blood this time around. Maybe because they've gotten a little more comfortable with the tech, or maybe they will actually have dismemberment this time around. Remember that Tengen ends the entertainment district with only 1 arm, and dismemberment would maybe be enough to push this game's rating from a T for teen to an M for mature. And you may notice that at the start of each trailer, at the bottom corner, you see that M rating pop up. It could just be a placeholder for now, or they're simply going beyond what they did in Demon Slayer 1, so they couldn't get that T rating anymore. I do think the stars of this story mode are still going to be the boss fights. And I think they know, because the number of boss fights seems to have increased exponentially. They are covering a lot more seasons this time around, but just like the first game, they are not shying away from making boss fights out of characters that are not and probably will never be playable. Sorry, Spider Daddy. It just wasn't meant to be. A few examples we've seen in Demon Slayer 2 so far are Daki's Sashes, this random Mantis demon, Steven, and Yoriichi Type 0. What's that? Yoriichi Type 0 is actually playable? With Kotetsu? Huh, what do you know? Even though a lot of the boss fights are against characters you can actually play as, their moveset has been altered, has been enhanced. It's a boss fight moveset. It's not exactly what you can lab when you pick up the character yourself. The first game was also like this, and I think that helps in making the boss fights more fun and more challenging without breaking the base character. I mean, I don't want to imagine having to deal with Boss Akaza online. I did notice a boss fight that seems to be missing in all of this gameplay, and that is Gyoko still in his vase form. We only fight him when he fully transforms, but I guess it would be difficult to make a cool boss fight for a character that can only move by teleporting from one vase to another, while you have full freedom of movement. I was hoping they would figure that one out, but unfortunately it seems like they didn't. Finally, I want to talk about a new system that is going to be accompanying you from the start of story mode until the very end, and that is equipment. Now, I'm not talking about collectibles, I'm not talking about the outfits that you pick up and equip on your character, I'm talking about actual equipment that acts as buffs during battle. During the IGN gameplay, you can see Tanjiro has 3 of them equipped. One of them heals, another one gives him more attack power, and the other one is blue. Okay, you got me. I don't know what the other one does. 3 pieces of equipment is actually how many you can equip at any given time, but it looks like you can have more than one set if you want to swap between them on the fly. We can actually read this one's description. It heals you a little bit when you reach 80% health. And as we can see from this Mitsuri gameplay, when she reaches 80%, she spends that piece of equipment and heals back up. Some pieces can be activated multiple times in a single battle, like this damage buff on Tanjiro, though the conditions to activate each equipment will probably be very different. So far, we've only seen equipment be used in story mode, but I wouldn't be opposed to seeing an option to use it online as well, as long as it's not in a ranked match, of course. But as an option for private lobbies or casuals, I could see it being kind of fun. But that's everything you need to know about the Demon Slayer 2 story mode. If you like the first game's story, this one seems like a safe bet, but for more details on how good it actually is, we're gonna have to wait for final reviews. In the meantime, for more Demon Slayer, check out this reaction right here. Thanks for watching. Bye.